Welcome. It's day 2 of Chapter Leaders Training, nuts and bolts. Seriously, this is the stuff you guys really need to know. I'm Tammy Bennett, Director of Membership and Engagement, and today you'll hear from the core team who really support all the chapter leaders. You'll be able to put a face with the names you see in all those emails. Ashley Wilson, Associate Director of Membership and Engagement, Brad Patterson, Membership Manager, Rhonda Wilhite, Chapter Support Associate, Jared Chilhonick, Associate Director of Member Marketing and Web Services, Mary Nolmeyer, Director of Finance, and Lori Roth, our Controller. Let me see. Is anybody seeing the whole group? I might need to adjust the cameras.
I've got my gallery view up.
You've got your gallery view. Okay. I was only seeing Brad, so I wanted to make sure you guys had a better view than that. All right.
I should hope.
We've got to get started on the right foot, right? Okay.
What's wrong with just seeing me?
We love you, Brad. There is no doubt about that. All right. For those of you who joined us on Monday, we're glad to see you again. And for those who can join us today for the first time, welcome. On Tuesday, we talked about leadership. We talked about service to others, both in our communities and in our association. And we talked about the importance of connecting and connecting intentionally with others. In the day 1 wrap-up email included a link to continue the conversation on LinkedIn. Ashley will also talk about another spot a little later on as a way to connect and ask questions and have conversations. Today, we'll cover foundational topics: chapter structure, fiduciary responsibilities, chapter communications, membership, awards, council of chapters, and treasurers. Through the 90 minutes today, please use the chat to ask questions of each other and to ask questions of staff. You can ask questions of the presenter, but we may not always be able to answer. We will always follow up. Let me see if I can get my screen to come back to the right thing. Doesn't matter how many times you practice this, does it? There we go. Do you see chapter structure on your screens?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Rhonda. All right. We're starting with chapter structure. And you guys all watched that video, so you know that APWA has 63 chapters. We're divided into 97 branches. Not every chapter does things the same way, and you'll hear that several times here. Chapters range from 50 people to 1,700 people. They can cover a metro area, a portion of a state, a whole state, or province, or multiple states and provinces. Some of our chapters have branches and some don't. And interestingly, the chapters that have branches don't always correlate to chapter size. For example, Chicago Metro chapter has 5 branches, but the New York Metro chapter has 2. The Rocky Mountain chapter covers 3 states and has no branches. Some chapters have very active technical committees, while others assign liaisons to the APWA committees. There's one chapter who organizes their entire branch system around the technical committee topics. Some of our chapters contract for certain services, and these can be variable. It can be accounting, it can be meeting planning, it can be website upkeep, or administrative functions. Most chapters complete all these functions with chapter volunteers, and we understand those are all volunteer hours in addition to your real job. So never let us forget to say thank you. All right, we have 3 key points to this section on chapter structure. The first is flexibility. APWA has created a structure that is flexible. There isn't a prescribed, rigid way you need to organize your chapter. Explore your options, talk to your other chapter leaders, make it make sense for your chapter, and make it make sense for your members. Staff's always here to help. Oh, there you go. The rules governing chapters. You probably heard this phrase a time or two. It is the key reference tool. This is the policy that principally governs the creation of chapters and branches, and it outlines critical requirements. The rules governing chapters is available on our chapter leader resources under chapter management, under administration. And note the current policy was updated in 2014 and is currently undergoing revision to align with the board priorities, legal requirements, and current practices. So there will be a little more to come on that. Last key point for this section, remember your bylaws. Chapters and branch bylaws typically set out how the board is made up, the terms and responsibilities of various positions, and so on. Historically, APWA has asked that bylaws be reviewed and updated every 3 years, and we know you love to do it. But there may be a little bit of news here too. The CEO, Scott Grayson, and our attorney have advised that all chapter and branches are created under the umbrella of APWA's Articles of Incorporation, except British Columbia. And as such, separate bylaws may not be required for each chapter and branch. So I know that's exciting, right? We're currently exploring alternate means of formalizing the relationship between APWA and the chapters and branches while continuing to have each chapter define their best governing structure, but without the requirements of bylaws or updating them every 3 years. So stay tuned. Don't give up your bylaws yet, but I did want you to know that that is in the works. All right, moving on, I am also going to talk about fiduciary responsibility. And you knew after bylaws, like it had to get better, right? So we go to fiduciary responsibilities, which is really important, and I hope it's not too boring. It's not boring. Please ask questions in the chat and be active. Keep us entertained here. Let me see. There are 3 key responsibilities, fiduciary responsibilities for all board members: the duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience. So I know when we hear fiduciary responsibilities in relation to chapter leaders, we often think, oh, that belongs to the treasurer. That is not true. Every single chapter and branch director has these 3 responsibilities. And they come together in general to require board members to be objective, to be responsible, to be honest, and to act in the best interest of the organization. But there's a little more to it. So let's take a look. The duty of care requires directors perform their functions with competence, act in good faith. You must exercise the care a reasonably prudent person would exercise in a like position and under similar circumstances. You need to participate in meetings, ask questions when necessary. The duty of care allows you to delegate authority, not responsibility, to committees and to rely on the advice of third parties like attorneys, accountants, etc., in your decision making. Duty of loyalty. Duty of loyalty imposes an affirmative obligation on board directors not to disclose information that could be harmful to the organization. And it requires directors to faithfully pursue interests of the organization, which must be primary to your own personal interests. Your duty is to protect the organization itself. But be clear, wrongdoing should not be tolerated. Concerns need to be reported up the chain and in consultation with legal counsel and or reported to authorities. Always reach out if you have a concern. Finally, we have the duty of obedience, which requires directors to faithfully pursue, hold on, I lost my notes. I don't want to mess this one up either. To faithfully pursue the organization's mission and decisions and abide by its rules and policies. Again, the duty is to the organization itself. Being a member-driven organization does not conflict with the duty of obedience. The slide outlines what it is that makes us a member-driven organization. It's very vitally important that board members understand how their duties fall into these categories. Not understanding your fiduciary responsibilities or not being informed about them doesn't relieve board directors from any of the obligations or liabilities they may face if they fail to fulfill their duties appropriately. Now, to be fair, fiduciary responsibilities also encompass all the financial transactions And Mary and Lori will cover that in the chapter treasurer section. So if you are ready for something a little bit lighter, I am going to hand this off to Jared and Ashley. Can you hear me now? I had to practice that one a lot.
All right, thanks, Tammy. I think we're all set up and sharing the right slides now. So again, I'm Jared Shulhanek, Associate Director of Marketing and Web Services. If you've got any questions whatsoever, I know Ashley and I are going to kind of tag team this section on chapter communications, but if you've got questions, throw them in the chat. We'll get to them even if we don't get to them right now. But Tammy said too, if we don't get them or a question comes later, check out LinkedIn. We've got some threads going out there that staff are monitoring. We're happy to jump in and talk with you. So first things first, before we dive into the exciting chapter communications, I've got a great surprise for you. So Ashley, if we could go into the next slide. You guys are the very first group outside of staff that are getting to witness or see a sneak peek of our National Public Works Week poster for 2021. So just a little background. I know I got to tease this out and make you even more anxious, but our theme this year is Stronger Together. There are tons of layers in that. We've all gone through a lot in the last year, but ultimately our responsibilities, your responsibilities as public works professionals are to make better, safer, happier communities for those that you live in. And if we're all working together, we are that much stronger for our communities. So that was kind of the rallying cry for our poster this year. We got a big get this year for an artist, Kirsten Ulv. She is an abstract artist that works quite a bit with, you kind of saw a sneak preview there. It's some bold colors. She's had some huge major clients this past year or over her career. Some of those you'll for sure notice, Volvo, New Yorker, Target, Glamour Magazine, all those. So without further ado, or for a second time here, Ashley, if we could go to the next slide, you guys see the poster here. So as you can see, we got some abstract, tons of bright colors, but throughout here, we wanted to make sure that we were showcasing team environments, groups of people working together on a public works front to really do things that are beneficial for their communities. So this actually hasn't even hit the press yet, so I can't even say hot off the press. It is at the printer today and tomorrow. Within the next few weeks, we'll have those available in the APWA store. Keep an eye on your inboxes. We'll make sure we let you know when they're available. But we're really proud of the work the artists did and our staff did to pull this together this year, and I think it's pretty meaningful given the theme, what we've all been going through here recently with COVID. So that's all I've got. That's your sneak preview. That's your little treat. I didn't make you wait till the very end. I gave it to you up front. So hopefully now you guys will listen to us when we talk to you a little bit about chapter communications. So first thing, I got two distinct pieces that I'm going to walk you through here. The first is how APWA communicates with you all, the chapter leaders, and then in a little bit we'll go back and we'll talk a little bit more about how chapter leaders, you communicate with your chapter members. So we've got some highlights, some tips and tricks and best practices, but our marketing specialist will also be here on day 4 next week to give you a ton more, kind of a little bit more in-depth, lots of lists of resources, things that you can really take away to go really start communicating more effectively with your members. So with that said, let's dive right into it here. So the ways that APWA communicates with you, the chapter leader, in the works. So you've all probably very familiar with the e-newsletter that comes every week. I've got another slide I want to show you, make sure that you're keying in on some of those chapter leader specific items that are coming your way. But we also do email blasts, surveys. We might send you technical or operational type of messaging, things like website outages, or if there's an issue with technology that we might need to make sure you're aware of how it could affect your chapter websites. And then also, we've got CEO or board of directors messages. The president might be reaching out to you as a group, as chapter leaders, to communicate something or kind of set the tone. I know earlier this week we sent one out from Scott and Mary Joyce Ivers. Had lots of great information in there. But those are just a sample of some of the types of communications that we have. And you'll have to excuse my dog if he starts barking. It's perfect timing all around here. So we can go ahead and move on to the next slide here. As I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about in the works. So we've got two different versions, and many of your chapter leaders might not know this. So it's a great example to be able to show. But on the left, what you'll see here is a plain regular version that goes out to all of our members and non-members. It is in the works. You'll see at the very top, right below that flashy email banner, we start diving right into some headlines and featured articles and things like that for the week. On the right-hand side, you'll see what is our Chapter Leaders Edition. That Chapter Leaders Edition, all of you chapter leaders actually get a special version. What you see on the left-hand side all actually slides down, and we've got a brand new section, or not a brand new section, but a special section just for you that is chapter leaders announcements for that week. There is regular turnover there that, whether it's announcements or calls to action if we need you to register for something, or if we need your attention or feedback on something. All of those different types of communications that are specifically directed to you as chapter leaders, those will show up at the top of your email. Nobody else gets them, so you guys can feel special about that. You'll see I've got an example here. Once a month, Brad does this in video form, so you can watch Brad grace you with his presence and kind of run through those announcements, but they're also in writing form as well. If you click on that, it'll take you out to a page with all the details and information that you might need on any of those headlines. So keep that in mind. Every Tuesday, pay attention to your inboxes. There's stuff in there that is just for you. So let's move on to the next slide here. And now we're really going to dive into how do you as chapter leaders communicate with your chapter members. And we're going to go to the next slide to see that we've got kind of a big three that we'll run through here. And I feel like I'm borrowing Tammy's words now. We've got big three. That wasn't even planned, everybody. We're just on the same wavelength. That's good. First thing first is chapter website. We'll go through email and then a little bit on social media. Again, our marketing specialists will be here on day 4 of chapter leader training, and they'll go into a little bit more depth on these, but we'll just kind of cover these at a surface level, make sure you're aware of some best practices and things that you can do as chapter leaders. So the very next slide here, this is a perfect example of what not to do. This is a bad website. We work very hard to get you guys templates, any kind of visual assets you might need to make your websites look good. Hopefully there's never a chance that your website would ever look like this, but the next slide that we're going to move over to here is actually going to walk you through some of those best practices that you can pay attention to when you're looking at your website. Most people don't think of your website as a communication tool. It is. If somebody wants to know more about you, want to know more about APWA, chances are they're going out and they're going to Google. And when they Google that, what are they going to find? And they land on your website. Are the headlines thoughtful? Are they giving the reader information that they want and that they need when they're scrolling your website? Excuse me. Are you using good photos? There are a multitude. We'll go through some resources for you in the email section, but there's so many really good websites out there that provide free stock photos. We encourage you to use those. Everybody has awesome smartphones and cell phones this time around. So take that phone with you. When you're obviously not during COVID, but when you're having live events as a chapter, take pictures. Those are great for your website, and a lot of people don't think to use those. Make sure you're paying attention to your copy and that you're running those through a second set of eyes. You don't want misspellings or things that are simple that can distract from your reader's attention of what your point you're trying to get across. And to go along with the next 2 items, really, make sure your website's updated. Make sure it's relevant. Make sure your calendar is up to date. People have the resources that they need that's timely and relevant. And lastly, make sure that there's an easy way for people to get in touch with you. That can be the most frustrating thing for people. They want to engage with you as chapter leaders, but then they don't know how to, or the information isn't right out in front of them to be able to easily access and locate a way to chat with you. So make sure that you're kind of looking through these, making sure you're keeping in mind when you're looking at website content.
And I'll jump in real quick here too. We will talk a lot more about chapter websites on day 4. There's a section on day 4 where we'll really get into a piece of the chapter websites and what's coming out for those who want to know what's coming out with the new template. And so we're not going to talk about that today, but we will talk about it on day 4 a little bit more.
Yes, perfect example of me going high level, but day 4 we're going to have some juicy details for you. So right here we've got a whole list of email best practices. I know the chapters, you guys as chapter leaders are responsible for getting email communications out to your folks, your members, and here's some things that you can kind of keep in mind when you're going about building those. Make sure you're using images, video, anywhere you can. Stats show that anytime you're able to use an image in an email, your engagement goes up by 25%. If you're able to get a video in there, it goes up by 50%. Obviously, not everything fits with images or video. Sometimes you need to get down to brass tacks and get just a short message out there that's text only. But when it's appropriate, try and work those in. It'll help your engagement significantly. Talk a little bit about the website. Write a quality headline. In marketing, there's an old saying that you should spend 10% of your time on the body of your email and 90% on the subject line. That is, take that with a grain of salt, but it's important. That's the first thing people see when they see your message in your inbox. And if it doesn't convey what you want it to, if it's not interesting, if it's not relevant, chances are they're never going to be able to open your email. They're never going to want to open your email, and then they're not going to see all the great stuff you have to say in the body of that email. So keep that in mind. Another thing to contemplate is timing, when to send it. Best practices are anywhere between Tuesday and Thursday, although we've seen some good results, and the industry as a whole has seen good results sending on Sundays as well. It's kind of counterintuitive, but these days everybody has a phone and tablet. They might want to kind of check in and do a little pre-work or at least read emails, prior to joining the work week on Monday. So you can experiment with that. Keep an eye on your deliverables and some of the metrics and reporting on the back end. See if it's successful with your group or not. We'll talk a little bit later on this, but keep up with your lists. Make sure that you're updated on unsubscribes and who's subscribed to receive communications from a chapter level. Be personal. We're not robots. People love to be talked to in a personal way. Make sure that they know that there's a person on the end of that email, and that goes along with knowing your audience too, knowing what you're talking about and who you're talking to, and then adapting your copy in that way. Be clear and concise with your calls to action. That's a marketing term, CTA. Ignore it, but call to action. There's something that we want people to do anytime we send an email, right? It might be register. It might be go read something. It might be sign up for something or give us your feedback. Whatever that is, make sure that it is clear, it is concise, and that it is very prominent. Put it in your headline. Put it as far up in the top of the email as you can. Make sure it's also at the bottom of your email so it's the last thing people read. We'll skip over that next one. Sorry, we already kind of talked about it, but the third to last there, make sure you edit it. Make sure another set of eyes has looked at it again. You don't want any spelling or errors to go out there that weren't intended. And then that second to last, test it. If you don't have a built-in testing tool in your email tool that your chapter uses, create some dummy emails. Create some email addresses, personal email addresses, work email addresses. Send an email to Yahoo, send it to Gmail, send it to an Outlook inbox. Make sure that everything looks how you intend it to look, because all of those email service providers will render emails just a little bit differently. So make sure it's consistent and your emails are showing up how you want them to show up. And last but not least, keep an eye on your results. You'll learn a lot from those results, how, when to send, what worked for your audience, what doesn't. And those results, those metrics, those reports at the end can really do a lot for you as a chapter. So let's go on to the next slide here. So APWA does have email resources for you. Like I said, we've got chapter lists out on the Chapter Leader Resources website. Got the URL there for you. We do have an APWA email sender tool for chapters. That's fairly basic, a little bit more limited, probably more best used for text type messages, things that don't have a lot of HTML in them. But then we've also got a great graphic design team. Whether you need help with logos or ads for newsletters, things like that, images, or you just need some advice, need to run something by us and want to make sure it's kind of in line with APWA standards or branding, we're happy to help you. Our graphic designers are awesome, and they're always willing to give you feedback. So let's go on to the next item here. And this is the good stuff, but I'm just going to be really brief. Again, day 4, we're going to go through a comprehensive list of tons of great resources for you, where you can go out, take that list, take it back to your chapter, and really enhance a lot of what you're doing. But here you'll see some logos, some different things. So we're going to talk about platforms that you can use to send emails, places you can go to gain inspiration and look at what other people are doing, see examples of the types of message that you're wanting to send that other people have sent. It's a great way to get inspired and steal some ideas. There are ways that you can create your own infographics, create your own custom images. We've got tons of stock photo resources that you can go out there and get free high resolution images in Public Works. It's great stuff. And then you see HubSpot there. That is kind of like Google for marketing. If you ever want to just spend a little time and read through, get lots of best practices, articles, case studies, everything, that's a great resource for you to be able to visit. So again, Abigail Grossman will be your host on day 4, and she's going to do a deep dive on this stuff. It'll be great for you. All right, next slide here is a little bit about chapter social media. We've obviously, it is 2021. Just about everybody is familiar and knowledgeable about social media. If your chapter isn't involved, I encourage you to do so. And you don't have to make a big splash. I encourage you to pick one that maybe you're most comfortable with, or you know that most people are on. Take a Facebook page, take a LinkedIn page, build it, start a presence. It's really easy. All you got to do is have an email address. And then once you go out there, there's lots of really great ways that chapter leaders can use social media to engage with your members on a chapter level. You know, if you're having events or you're having discussions, use a hashtag for each of those. Take videos of your events or show highlights from past events. People love seeing images and videos and starting comments with people they know. Especially within a work environment. So we'll go through quite a bit on social media on day 4 as well. But I really encourage each of the chapter leaders, to work with your chapter. Make sure you've got a presence out there. And APWA National, we've got accounts everywhere on all the social media platforms. We are happy to help spread the word about your pages, your presence. We'll help repost and retweet and everything else. When it comes to your own messages, we'll make sure it gets out to a national audience as well. So that's always very helpful.
Hey, Jared, we had a question on here I think would be really good to cover on the video here. Does National suggest one form of social media over the other by chance? Is there one that we would suggest or prefer over any others?
I would say go with the really professional one like TikTok. So I'm kidding. Make sure everybody knows I'm kidding. Things like LinkedIn probably have the least amount of barriers. If we've run into situations where people say, hey, I can't access Facebook or Twitter or Instagram from my work computer, it's locked off. LinkedIn is a little bit more professional in terms of scope of content. That's a great starting place, but Facebook is great too. Just about everybody has a Facebook account. It's a great way to connect with people. Those would probably be the 2 I would recommend. And then if you're wanting to go further than that, I would say probably Twitter and YouTube would be your next steps, with maybe Instagram being kind of that third tier. But really, it's up to you. Talk with your chapters, see what works, what people want to work in, what people are comfortable managing as far as accounts go. All that kind of plays factor in, but I think Facebook and LinkedIn would probably be great starting points for you.
Thanks, Jared. The other thing I've noticed too in the conversation of the chatter is a lot of folks are starting to assign a role for a social media manager or a social media chair at the chapter level. That's fantastic to see that happen. And honestly, if that's something you guys are starting to see, your chapter is starting to need more and more of, putting a chair or somebody assigned to that role is a great idea. And if you ever need help, feel free to reach out to Jared or Abigail or anybody on the marketing team at APWA National. We would be more than happy to step in and help you or kind of coach you as you get started with that new social media chair. All right, so we're going to move into chapter leaders to chapter leaders communication. This is another form of communication that is available out there to you, but it's more internally for you all as chapter leaders and how to speak to one another. I did notice in the chatter that there was a lot of comments in there about folks who are not receiving the chapter leader in the Works email tool. For those who are not able to get that, please send an email to chaptersupport@apwa.net. And we will review all of those over the next couple of days and ensure that we get you set up as well. I'll post that in the chat too, so you have that email address. But again, it's chaptersupport@apwa.net. So if you're not receiving the chapter leader email, put those there and we'll follow up with you. So some chapter leader to chapter leader communications. There are a bunch of different forms of communication out to you as chapter leaders for you to communicate back and forth. One of them that we started just in 2020 as part of being in a virtual platform is the chapter leader idea exchanges. Another one would be your regional meetings. And then a brand new thing that we're bringing back to life is the chapter leader online community. So I'll talk a little bit about these three areas, but obviously there's way more out there for you. The chapter leader idea exchanges are held quarterly. Like I said, we started this last year. Last year we had 4 different sessions. We had the pivoting to virtual meetings, PWX at home and chapter education, membership town hall, and the advocacy, the time is now. And really these chapter leader idea exchanges are really formulated where we'll have a subject matter expert such as either a staff member or other chapters who have done fantastic things in these areas will be online, but it's really a time for you all as chapter leaders to communicate and discuss and share your ideas back and forth. And we more as staff are facilitating that for you. I know for the advocacy town, the time is now, our team from the DC office got on and shared a lot of really great ideas and resources that are available to you. But then the conversation opened up to more of what you can do at a local level and was more of a Q&A for you. The membership town hall, we did present a couple different things about our membership overall as far as what we have going on and where we are in the future. But then we opened the floor up to the chapter leaders to share ideas, to talk about any frustrations or difficulties that you're having, and maybe ways that we could solve any solutions that you need in the future. So be looking for 2021 topics to come out. These will be held virtually. We do record these sessions as well, and we provide those online afterwards. So if you cannot attend the day of the event, that's all right. We can get you on the recorded session to provide that to you later on. The other area is regional meetings. Regional meetings really are a great tool for you to just get to talk back and forth between your chapter leaders. The one thing I would say is get to know who your regional director is. If you don't know who they currently are, please look at the board of directors list. Your regional directors are amazing resources. They're great to provide you details back from the board at national. They're also really good at taking anything that you've got as far as a concern or success stories or great things that are happening. They take us to the board meetings and they share them. So if you don't know them already, please get to know who your regional director is. The other thing I would say is get to know your chapters in your region. So if you don't know who else is in your region, hopefully you do by this point in time, but if you don't, that's okay. Get to know who those folks are. There is a link out on our actual website on the Council of Chapters webpage out on apwa.net that if you go click the image on there, it'll pull up who is in your region, and I believe it also pulls up who your regional director is for you as well. So you can go look at all of that information online, or feel free to ask one of us staff members. We're always willing to help you out. Another area that is really good communicating back and forth for chapter leaders is Council of Chapters meetings. We hold 2 meetings a year, one in the winter and one during the summer. And we always do a regional meeting with the delegates and alternate delegates that are there in attendance at those events. These are really great times for chapter leaders to share communication back and forth within their own region and to also share those ideas or conversations with their regional director. I do know that some regions are hosting virtual meetings. They're doing this quarterly in some of the areas. I know that Region 8 does a fantastic job of having one at least once a month, and those who can attend, and those who can't, that's okay. But these are really great platforms for your area to have communications back and forth as chapter leaders and really just connect with one another. And I can't encourage it enough. Just connect with other chapter leaders in your area. That's the best way you're going to be able to either answer any of your questions, share ideas. We are always more than happy to help you at the national level, but sometimes local in your space where you've got other chapter leaders doing the same thing as you, you might find something different, or you might find great ideas and be able to share those back and forth. the new tool that's available to you, and for some of you chapter leaders who have been around for a little while, you may remember this. We used to have a chapter leaders info now community, and we have revamped that. We're bringing this back to life. So as of today, this has been launched brand new for you guys out on our APWA Connect community. We will send a communication out through that probably either today or tomorrow just to welcome everybody. But everybody that was currently in our database as a chapter leader has been preloaded into this community. So if you do not receive a communication through this platform in the next couple of days, let us know. We can go out and check your settings and get you added into that community. But you should also have the ability to go out there and request to be added to it as well. So if you've not visited our APWA Connect community, please do so. That is found out through our national website under resources. And then I believe it says APWA Connect, and you just have to sign in there with your APWA login, and then you can go find those communities out there. This one will be located underneath chapters, and you can click on it and request to be added, or you probably already have been added to it. But this will be a great space for you all to share ideas, ask questions. We'll post out the resources for best practices. You'll also have the ability to share resources that you all have as well and have those stored in there. We're really hoping that this is a great networking tool for you as chapter leaders, so you can really use that to reach out to folks. And the other really cool part that we've added to it is a calendar. The calendar will have all of the important dates for you as a chapter leader, that if you ever have a question about when something's due, when awards are due, when financial packets are due, or anything like that, we'll have this calendar posted out there for you with those important dates. The nice part about it is you don't even have to go to the online community if you don't want to. You can send an email through chapterleaders@infonow.apwa.net and communicate just through your email tool only. If you never want to visit the website, that's okay as well. So be looking for more communications to come out to you on that area. And let me run through this. I just kind of want to show you some graphics. Out under chapters, it will be called Chapter Leaders Community, and you can add yourself to that community, or we can get you set up in there. You'll be able to see all of the postings on there online, anything that's been sent. And then the calendar view has all of the upcoming events. And we've pre-populated everything out there for 2021. And as we get the dates for 2022, we will look for you as well. Overall, we're hoping that we work together as a team here to get the communication not only within chapter leaders, but that it's something that you can receive from us here at National, and it's in a clear and concise format for you to understand and read. And then also ways for you to share communication out to your members as well. So, you know, I put this picture there because it really reminds me of fist pumping and saying, we got this, team. So if you need anything from Jared or I or anybody else on the membership and engagement team, please feel free to reach out to us. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand this back over, I believe, to Brad and Tammy.
You're muted, Tammy.
Everybody has to do it once. All right. Thank you, Ashley. I love hearing that. Do you guys see my screen again? You don't see the share is not. All right, there we go. There, we're up and going. So there are a couple of themes you're going to hear over and over today and over the next 3 days, I suspect, and that is the APWA staff is here to help you. That's what we're here to do. And so never hesitate to reach out to us. So I am going to cover chapter leader resources. What do you mean it's on chapter leader resources? We hear that occasionally. We have several places for you to go for information, and most of those have been covered by Jared and Ashley, thankfully. But chapter leader resources is the website where we store a lot of the information for you. All right, so the first thing you want to do when you sign or when you go to our website is to make sure that you can sign in. You make sure you can sign in and then go to chapters and look for chapter leader resources. If you don't see that, it's likely you are not designated, as a chapter leader in our system. So sign in, look for chapter leader resources, and if you get there, you're good to go. All right, so next up. Okay, from here, there's a first level menu, or what I think of as a first level menu. so these are the areas that we're going to cover within the chapter leader resources, and each of the areas will have even more under it. So there are almost 3 levels of menus, and that's one of the reasons I'm trying to walk through this very, very specifically through our slides. So we've got membership, finance and compliance resources, chapter management, which I referenced earlier, council of chapters, which Ashley referenced earlier, awards, and YPs and students. All right, so even within each of those, there's more. So within chapter management, there's another layer, and I will call these tabs. So it's not always intuitive to look for those 3 layers, but they're tabs. So chapter management, one of the components is bylaws, and then if you click on bylaws, you're going to go to and have a whole nother list of tools, which are templates or how we revise them, even though I said earlier we're going to change that process. All right, we'll keep going on that. Within chapter management, we also have chapter administration. There's good stuff here on the oath of office, the rules governing chapters I mentioned earlier, and more. Let's see, I've got it. Request a visit. So if you are interested in having either the CEO or board of directors come to visit your chapter when we did real visits, this is the place to request that. You can also request that now, and they will come for virtual visits. Ashley talked about reaching your regional director. So these are the regional directors. These are the areas they cover. And chapter leader training under chapter management. Here is the information that we had in 2019. After the fact, we will put the stuff up for 2021 when we get all finished here. Next up, we've got the Council of Chapters at the upper level, and then you've got the lower tabs with resources including best practices, steering committee information, task forces, focus groups, meeting summaries, and the council minute. We've got a resource tab that covers a ton of information. It's got these 6 tabs, and then there are 2 more that I just wanted to highlight because they're just packed with information that you may want or need. Chapter rodeo competition. We've got a chapter rodeo manual in here, and tons of examples. And then the COVID-19 chapter resources. This was obviously developed in March or April to provide information that matters to you right now, including a lot of information about virtual conferences. We have the recorded webinars for the chapter leader idea exchanges, although I on several of them forgot to record until after the introduction, so please be patient with us there. All right, finance and compliance. These are the topics that are going to be covered under in that tab level, and Mary and Lori will talk a lot more in depth about the types of information you'll find under each of those, but I wanted to make sure you knew it was there. All right, Brad is going to dive a little deeper into the membership area. Membership 101 is typically a 1-hour webinar, and there are older versions on the APWA YouTube channel, but in this lightning round, we are going to capture the nut of it in just a few minutes.
Okay, Tammy. So you don't get 90 minutes. You get 5 minutes.
Feedback, Brad.
I don't know where that's. How about this? Still?
Brad, you may be able to remove the volume on your speakers, maybe. There's a lot of reverb. We'll still hear you talk, but we're hearing your speeches.
I didn't do anything else. Just the volume.
Can you mute your volume?
It's completely muted.
Well, now your microphone is muted. Okay. So you're muted, so it's not coming from you. Tammy, you may want to mute all and then have Brad unmute.
It appears that all are muted, but I will do that again. Mute all, and Brad, you go from here.
Okay. You still? Okay.
There you go.
Is that all right? Okay. We're going. I'm
No,
still
it's not okay.
That's weird.
Maybe you can leave the meeting and back on again.
You want me to clear up?
It might help.
Okay. Hopefully I'll be back in a minute.
While we're waiting for Brad, we can entertain any questions, comments, information that you are dying to know from the group.
I noticed in the chat there were a couple of, I know no one's going to speak, so I'm going to speak. I can't stand silence. Sorry, guys. But I noticed in the chat there was a lot of comments going on in there about if you aren't able to, if you feel like you're not receiving your chapter leader in the Works newsletter, sometimes go check your spam because they may accidentally be going over there just because of the additional information that goes in there. Your filters could be pushing them over there. So you might check there first. You can always email chaptersupport@apwa.net. We'll check the settings on our side, but that was a tip that was put out there by Tiffany. Thanks, Tiffany, for putting that out there as a reminder to look there to see if you're having to get them there.
Any burning questions?
Yeah.
As we wait?
I thought Brad popped in. We just got to get him talking.
He's on?
How about this?
Sounds better.
Yeah, whatever that was, because I didn't have to do any of the volume. It was already down to about 10. All right, so we only got a couple of minutes then, I guess, huh? All right, so let me get out of this view. Okay, Tammy. That's great. Couple bullet points to cover, and I'm going to reiterate that probably best after this.
Tammy, that might help. We're hearing feedback from you. Still happening.
With the share screen.
Brad, are you still on?
Yes.
And is everybody still getting feedback?
Yeah, it's only when Brad speaks. Maybe we can also
All right.
do a new thing.
Yeah, I can talk for a little while if you'd like. Why not? I'll just-
Tammy, we're getting feedback from Scott too.
What we might do is have Brad stop sharing and then have you share if that's possible. Because it seems to be with screen.
Actually, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
It's happening. Screen share. I was talking. So somebody else share the screen.
Okay, if just my microphone is on, is it still happening?
No, it's when Brad presentation up.
Okay.
When he had it, before he did that, but once it,
Okay, interesting. Well, Brad, if it's okay with you, I can walk through some of these reports on the membership tab, and I can't see anybody anybody on any of my screens. So you guys are just, I'm going to have to believe that you're all nodding and think this is a brilliant idea for me to walk through these. So membership, again, upper level membership, second level membership reports. And these are reports that any chapter leader can get to. Our chapter, well, all our membership records are official on the 8th of the month, each month. So within the main membership area, you've got rosters, live reports, and statistics. If I go to statistics reports, and this is the one that Brad has mentioned is most valuable to the chapter leaders most of the time. It's going to cover the chapter membership for this year, last year, about the same time, and then what those gains and losses are. So you can see if you're moving a lot, a little, and then dig into what those are. For example, if you are a chapter of, for instance, 120, and you lose 30 people in 1 month, there's a higher than average likelihood that that is one or two public agencies, and you can dig into your reports a little bit to see who that is and what's causing that, and give you a chance to follow up with them. So this is the statistics reports fiscal year to date. Excuse me. The rosters area, you can get a list of your chapter members at any time that you'd like. On the right here, I have a note of our generation summary. This is only as accurate as the information that's in it. So whenever I have the opportunity to get on my soapbox, I always ask you to encourage your members to fill out their birth year so that we're actually able to track this information much more accurately. And then down below, the information from your chapter members is exportable into Excel, and then you can do with it as you need to. Live reports, that was the one, I believe, in the middle. So there were 4 reports that Brad really wanted to call out. New members, delinquent members. Delinquent members are those whose expiration or paid through date has ended, but they're in kind of a 90-day waiting period. Dropped members are after the 90-day waiting period. They go to an inactive status and are classified as non-members in our system. And then groups with vacancies. This is important, a good one to check monthly or at least every few months. If a public agency or a corporation has a group roster that has vacancies on it, you're not getting credit for those vacant spots. So those are real easy ads for our membership numbers, is to call up the city next door and say, do you have a couple people to fill those rosters? And we think you'll get some good value out of the membership. Membership marketing. This tab has a phenomenal amount of information for you. Excuse me, when you're diving into the membership area, whether it's the basics, recruitment, retention, planning, audit, and so on. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about our membership strategy. So this is at APWA overall. There are 3 pillars of our membership strategy. Engagement is the key. The key here is to show value and connection through the year. And when we provide value and connection through the year, we're much better positioned to retain our members, retention being the middle pillar. And APWA is very fortunate to have committed volunteers, committed leaders, and loyal members. And that's an exceptional combination when it comes to supporting recruitment, which is our 3rd pillar. So each of the pillars within our membership strategy have each pillar have 2 to 8 strategies that help support that. So our membership strategy overall supports the overall strategic plan for APWA, and our work as the membership and engagement department drives back to these strategies and tactics every day. So within each of these strategies, each of these have tactics, but I do want to highlight a key strategy that is that is really important to talk about today, which is partnering with our chapters. So the chapters are where the rubber meets the road. You guys are the first and often only connection with members to provide that value. So I'm, in theory, handing this off to Brad. Do we want to try Brad again?
We can try, man.
Go for
I'm
it.
still hearing it.
Yeah, it's still not working. I'm hearing echo. Actually, troubleshooting.
We will
Now,
not.
it could be VPN. Brad, are you
Okay.
VPN?
I don't know.
Okay.
We're running short on. Highlight this. If there is anything that you commit to doing today when you leave this session, I would love for you to read the membership basics on this menu. It has a phenomenal amount of information. Basically, it's the 101, membership 101, 1 hour session in one document. So please take a look at that. We've also got the recruitment and retention toolkits that have letters, samples, and always feel free to call Brad for additional information. He's a great resource and usually not an echoey one. Okay, and with that, I'm going to go to awards. And I hope Rhonda can talk because I sure don't know this stuff as well.
Okay, do you guys get a? Is there an echo?
Somebody else to share the screen. What happens with me sharing?
Stop screen sharing. Okay. Can you, do you guys still get an echo? Okay. We'll just put the screen back up. It's basically just got my information on it, so we'll go from there. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Rhonda Wilhite, Awards and Chapter Relations Associate, and I'm excited to talk about awards, deadlines, and opportunities. The awards program was established to recognize outstanding individuals, groups, and chapters like all of those attending today. Through chapter participation, we help give your local award winners a chance to be recognized nationally. I've been lucky enough to attend some of the chapters' virtual award ceremonies this year, and I've enjoyed seeing you guys make that a top priority to recognize the best in public works. I really have enjoyed it. That's one good thing I've gotten back out of being, in 2020, everybody has to do things virtually. But there are 3 important deadlines I want you to remember. March 1 is the award nominations deadline, except for June 1 is the PACE, the Presidential Award for Chapter Excellence, which is also known as the PACE Award. To qualify for the PACE, if your chapter membership is 500 or more members, you need to submit a Top 10 Public Works Leader of the Year award. You also need to submit 3 other chapter nominations of your choice. If your chapter membership is less than 500, you need to submit 1 nomination of your choice. There will be a PACE webinar coming in April, so please watch for In the Works to announce that. That date hasn't been confirmed yet, but we are working at that. But until then, I would refer you to the criteria as there were changes, and please use the best practices spreadsheet posted beside the criteria. It has been updated with current language and practices. Now, there's some opportunities involved here, and I don't want you all to just, email me all at once, but here's the opportunities. You can serve as a judge on the awards committee or the Public Works Projects of the Year committee, or if you're a previous Top 10 Public Works Leader of the Year recipient, you qualify to serve on that committee. To learn about these committees, please visit the APWA website. Under the About tab, choose Governance, then select Standing and Program Committees. To nominate yourself or a colleague, click on the National Nominations Portal. Deadline for nominations is March 22nd. So let's participate, nominate, and judge, and everyone will locally and nationally will win in the awards program. So does anyone have any questions?
Rhonda, so March 1st is all awards except for top 10, which are due the 22nd, except for PACE, which is due June 1st.
No, March 1st is for all the awards except for the PACE, which is June 1st, and March 22nd is the deadline for you to get to nominate yourself to be on an APWA committee or one of my awards committee, which that's what I'm pushing. Any other questions?
Rhonda,
And-
I posted in the chat, did you want to speak at all about the PACE Award and how we will take into account the diminished in-person activities based on COVID's impact?
Sure. This is also on that. I really want to refer you to the best practices, that it's new, it's out there. Don't use last year's. And there is a little verbiage up there on the top of the first page that explains that because of COVID, it says, please do not hesitate to submit for the PACE Award simply because your chapter may not be able to check every box on the best practices sheet. Instead, strive to demonstrate the continued value your chapter has provided to members and communities. So there's more to read, but that is the gist of it. So don't let that hinder you. But some of you have gotten very great ideas to share that perhaps other chapters could too. I read the minutes. By the way, you need to send in your minutes too, if you don't already know that. And I see some really great ideas. And I really enjoyed your award, seeing some of the virtual award nominations. Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, now I would like to introduce the staff liaison to the Council of Chapters, Ashley Wilson.
All right. Hopefully you guys are able to see my screen without echo. Are we good? Perfect. Yay. Okay. Yay. We're going to move on. Make this fairly quick to keep us on track here. I'm actually going to hand this over to the steering committee chair for Council of Chapter for the 2021 year, to Pete Adler, who is coming from the Colorado chapter for a piece of it. And then I'll jump back on after he's done. So Pete, it's in your hands at this moment.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Ashley, and good afternoon, everybody. As Ashley said, my name is Pete Adler. I'm from Region 9, Colorado chapter, and I'm the chair of the Council of Chapter Steering Committee for this year. As you can see the list on there, I'd like to also introduce my fellow members of the steering committee, more than half which are with us today. Rich Benevento from Region 1, Bill Rafferty from Region 2, Bill's with us. Jeffrey Brown from Region 3, he's the vice chair. Jeffrey's with us today. Jeff Hollian from Region 4. Eric Penthel, he's mispronounced his name all the time. He's from Region 5, Eric's with us. Ron Knock from Region 6, he's with us. Sharon Valiente from Region 7, and Jubin Pakpor from Region 8. Jubin's not with us today, but he was here on Tuesday, so work gets in the way. As you can see, the mission of the Council of Chapters is to serve as advisors to the APWA Board of Directors, the CEO, committees, and staff in support of the association's mission and implementation of the strategic plan. Next level down is the objectives, and instead of reading it verbatim, I'll just kind of go over what it means. What it basically is, our objectives are to provide input to and from chapters, to and from APWA for operational activities. One of the things, example recently, is when we standardized bookkeeping for all chapters through APWA. That was a great communication work back and forth. We support chapter growth through mentorship and connections outside of your chapter. After all, APWA is a big family, and so we have family members across the country and in Canada that we can share information with. Act as a conduit for information exchange between APWA and your chapter leaders' announcements, and you pass it along to your chapter members, etc. act as a conduit for feedback into APWA initiatives and operations that affect your chapters, and also to bring concerns and issues from the chapter to APWA. That's the role of the delegate. The next point is to how to make the most of most of the Council of Chapters for your chapter with your delegate. First, use your delegate as a resource. Delegates are tied in with the national organization. Most of us have been past chapter presidents, so we know how the local chapter operates. We also know how the national chapter operates, and we've also developed relationships across APWA with additional chapter reps. For example, Ashley had mentioned that Region 8 has a monthly happy hour, which I sat in with last night, which was great. Communicate any struggles or frustrations with your chapter, with your delegate, or the Regional Council of Chapter Steering Committee member, because that's part of what we do. We communicate back and forth. And also communicate all of your success to your delegate and Regional Council of Chapter Steering Committee members. As delegates, we like to brag about what's gone well in our chapter, and we want to be able to reach out to other chapters and say, hey, you've got this event or this issue's come up. This is what we've done, been successful about it. And it's not just that the Colorado chapter talks about what we've done right with our conferences, but we like to learn from what works in other parts of the country so we can bring it back and improve on what we do. So.
Thanks, Pete, for going over all of that. I real quick just want to talk about some of the accomplishments. I'm not going to read through this list, but in the last just 3 years, the Council of Chapter has completed a lot of different things, and this is a huge list of everything that they've done the last 3 years. As you can tell, there's quite a lot there. But if you look through that, I mean, the main headers that come out to me here is chapter. I don't know if you can see that, but the main bullet point on a good chunk of these is chapter. So it's something to do with your chapters. Which is fantastic. Council of Chapters is really just focused around making sure that those delegates are there to represent your chapter. And so they're bringing everything together at least twice a year when we have our meetings, whether they're in person or in virtual, bringing up any successes that chapters are doing, any struggles that chapters are doing. And we really talk about how to make those better so that way we can improve everything on the chapters in there. But it's not just about chapters. There's also stuff in there about the national items that we are asking the delegates to help us to either come up with task forces or plans or work plans or anything like that that we can do at a national level to help support our members and support you as well. And so if you've ever got questions about what Council of Chapter has completed or what we're working on, or if you've got ideas or suggestions as a chapter leader, please feel free to share those with your delegate in your chapter, who will then share that with the steering committee member, and then we will discuss it and see if it's something that we need to put together and have it at as one of a task force or a focus group for the Council of Chapter. I kind of just want to throw this in here real quick. Upcoming for the winter 2021 meeting, the following task forces will be meeting. So this is what the delegates will be covering during our winter meeting. Most of these have been carried over from when they met during the summer. So Advocacy Task Force, your Public Works Awareness Task Force, Public Works Workforce, and then supporting of struggling chapters. So these are really the hot topics that we'll be discussing during the winter meeting, which will be held in February. And what to expect from your delegate. The biggest thing that you can expect from your delegate as a chapter leader is twice a year they have to submit a chapter activity report of what's going on with your chapters. These reports are extremely valuable to us here at National, but also to your regional directors and to other chapters as well. It really gives us a status or a pulse of how your chapter is doing and all the wonderful things that are going on, or if there are any struggle points for the chapter that we maybe need to spend a little bit more time focusing on. So your delegate may ask you as a chapter leader for information about your committee or information about different things that are going on. When they ask you for that information, it's always great if you can respond back to them with as much as you can and within a timely manner, because they do have a deadline to submit these reports over to us. What you can also expect from your delegates is that they're going to be an advocate for your chapter. They're going to advocate on your behalf. They're going to share any of the struggles that your chapter is having. They're going to share any of the stories, successes that you're doing, and they're going to share that across the board with other delegates, but they're also going to share it with staff and with the board of directors as well. So they're really your advocate at the national level for you. They'll be able to assist you with solutions for APWA members, help the growth of programs and benefits for APWA, and really just overall enhance your chapter. When we talk about one APWA, which Mary Joyce and Scott kind of talked about that a little bit yesterday, this is what we mean by as one big team, bringing it all back together. And as a whole, your chapter provides the information to the delegate brings it back to national, and then the delegate will bring it back to you at the chapter level. So as one big team, we're one APWA. So overall, we're sharing, learning, and we're being creative together. At that, I am going to stop sharing at this point in time, and I'm going to hand this over to our finance team. They will spend the rest of this time really talking about the financial duties as a treasurer and what your role is there. Not that I need to say everybody can kind of take off for the day, but if you're stretched on time and you need to leave, feel free. If you need to jet out, you can. Otherwise, stay on, learn everything you can about the financials and what the deadlines are and what's needed from you as a chapter, as these are important tools and resources that the treasurers at each of your chapters have to submit to national.
Ashley, can I make one comment as we enter this? If you can stay on, I would. What I share with our finance staff and what I would share with all of you is this is the most important element that ensures that I stay out of prison, and I need your help in that. And I see Stan, and well, I'm only on one screen. It Stan's on my screen. There's other board members as well. We want to keep them out of prison as well. So.
Yeah. So Scott, that's a perfect lead in. I'm Mary Nollmeyer, and I'm the Director of Finance, and Lori's getting ready to share her screen. Lori Roth is our new controller. She joined us in May. Many of you have corresponded with her already, and now you will be able to put a face to a name. We are going to go through the Cliff Notes version of everything you need to know for finance, since we only have, 18 minutes? But we're going to go through the stuff that's necessary to maintain our tax-exempt status and to allow us to report to the IRS accurately and timely, and to keep Scott out of the orange jumpsuit. So we will go through this quickly, and always email us with any questions, and then we will be having some more in-depth sessions in the future. So Lori, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're here. And we do have a whole lot of information to cover, so hopefully I can get through this in the 18 minutes. If I'm talking fast, it sounds like I am, I probably am. If you do have questions, if you want to put them in the chat, Mary can watch that, and if there's something she can answer back quickly, she can. Otherwise, if she thinks it might affect the whole group, we may share it till the end and answer it for everyone to hear. But I'm glad you're here, and let's get started. The title of our session is Chapter Treasurer Resources, Tools, Reminders, and Tidbits. One of the main, hold on. One of the main responsibilities of the treasurer, and so I wanted to kind of walk through those. You are the main contact for your chapter as the financial person. So if we ever need information financially, you are the person we're going to reach out to. It may not always be you that can provide that information, but you can at least help us get to the right person. The other thing to keep in mind is that we need you to kind of coordinate with your branches. We're going to look to you if we can't get information from the branches. So it's good for you to stay in touch with them and coordinate and make sure everything is flowing properly. We also need to attend your chapter board meetings, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. You are the main custodian of the chapter banking and investment records. Now, not everyone has investment records, but if you did, you are the main custodian of those accounts. We do ask that you keep your bookkeeping on QuickBooks Online. We ask that you do it quarterly at a minimum, but we really prefer if you could do it monthly. It's easier if you can keep up with it throughout the month. I know during COVID, there's not as much activity as there has been in past years, so quarterly might be fine, but I just don't want you to get overwhelmed trying to do everything at one time. We've talked about board meetings. Many of your board members are going to request that you provide financial reports to them at the board meetings, so that's why it's important for you to have everything current and to kind of be aware of what's gone on with your finances during the month or the quarter. You want to make sure you record all your vendor payments and records properly. That's going to come in use when you file your 1099s at year end, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then finally, you are responsible for processing and submitting all the required documentation for year end, the audit checklist, and the 1099s. What resources do you have available to help you with all of your responsibilities? Well, one of the ones we've talked a lot about today is Chapter Leader Resource website, and I've got that noted here. As Tammy mentioned, there's a finance and compliance section, and under that, there's 5 different areas. I'm going to touch on most of these during our talk, so I won't go into detail here, but you can kind of see reference to the different things under each section. I think it's going to be really important maybe after today's call for you to just go in here and play around with the different sections, get familiar. If you need to download some documents onto your desktop or to print them for reference, I think you'll find there's a lot of great information there for you. And what tools can National help you with some of your, what tools can National provide to help you with some of your treasurer responsibilities? Well, of course, banking, and I've got Scott's name. He is our Chief Executive Officer, and he should be the signatory on all your bank and investment accounts. And that comes from our rules of governing chapters, which Tammy touched on earlier. There's a section 11, which relates specifically to financial management. And it does tell you that as a chapter, you must have 3 current chapter officers and Scott's signatory on that account. And if you're a branch account, you must have 2 current branch officers, a current chapter officer, and Scott's signatory. So it's going to be real important, especially if you're new to your position, you've just taken over responsibilities, to get with your bank, find out who they have on the account. Because of course, if the treasurer has left and you're now there and you're not able to sign the checks, you're going to have a problem. So it's going to be important to get all that updated when you come into your position. Chapter credit card payments. As you know, the chapters and branches hold different events, and National has a event module that we offer that you can use to collect your payments. The payments all come to National, but what we do is we turn around twice a month, usually the 1st and 3rd week of the month, and send those monies out to you. So, and when we send them out, we do send a report that identifies the event and who signed up and the monies that were collected. So it's going to be real important when you get those to go ahead and deposit them right away. Make sure that we also have your correct address and the name of the treasurer on our files, because otherwise the check may end up with an old treasurer or a different address. So make sure you're updating that with us, and you can send that information to me or to our accountant, which is Jordan, and I'll have her name at the end of the slide with her email address. When you do get your event credit card payments, when you record them in QuickBooks, be real careful that the gross amount of the sale, whether it's an event or a sponsorship, is recorded in the revenue on your chart of accounts in QuickBooks. But then you're also recording the discount fee that we hold out for credit card processing as an expense. You don't want to put the net amount into your revenue, but put your gross amount into your revenue. Certificate of insurance. APWA carries a general liability policy, which covers all of your chapter activities. If you do get a contract and the event holder is requesting a certificate of insurance, just go out to the Chapter Leader Resource site, and there is a certificate of insurance or a COI request form. Fill that out. It's pretty self-explanatory, and let us know if the event holder is requesting that they're listed as an additional and insured person. And if so, then we will make sure that when the insurance agency sends that to you, they have been added as an additional insured. We ask that you give us at least 7 to 10 business days before the event. If you want to do it sooner than that, that's great. And And if the it's getting close and the event holder hasn't received it, I'm sure they'll reach out to you. But it's always good to give us at least 7 to 10 business days to turn that around. Chapter rebates. As you probably have heard, the national office will send you rebates twice a year based on your membership numbers. Our first payment of the year will go out February or March, so you should be getting that here in the next month or so. That covers your membership numbers at the end of 12/31. And then a second rebate will go out in September, and that will cover whatever membership numbers you have at June 30th. When you get those rebates, make sure you're recording them in account 463, which is a revenue account titled rebates. Contracts. If you get a contract and you need it reviewed, no matter what the dollar amount is, Mary Nollmeyer, the Director of Finance, will be happy for you to look it over with you and make any suggestions or make sure there's no unexpected risks that you may not have thought about. If it's over 10,000, we are required to review that, so make note of that. If it's an annual amount of 10,000 or more, she'll need to review it. If it falls between 5,000 and 10,000, we don't need to review it. However, we would ask that you send a copy of the contract to us for our records. The only exception to the contracts coming to us are any that relate to upcoming chapter events. And our Director of Meetings, Diana Forbes, is going to be talking about this subject in depth on Thursday next week. So just know that there's a differentiation between whether it's a chapter event or just some other type of contract for a contractor or someone of that nature. 1099 reporting. Those of you that have been around for a few weeks probably got tired of my emails, but we just filed our 1099s that were due by the end of this week. We got them in the mail yesterday, so thank you to everyone that helped me to get that done. 1099s are basically a W-2 for an employee, but these are issued to people that have provided services more than $600 that are not employees. So these would be like your musicians, your paid admins, maybe you have an accounting group that you use, planners, different things of that nature. One thing to keep in mind that the contractors do not have to be individuals. I think that's one misconception. It can be a corporation, depending on the circumstances of what kind of service is provided. It could be a partnership. So we're not really looking to you to make that determination. That's what I'm here for. So what we are asking is that you get a W-9 from any entity that you pay services to. So anytime you add a new vendor and you're making a payment, part of your process should be to say, we need a copy of your W-9 on file. That will make it a whole lot easier for you at year end when you're trying to put your 1099 information together and report it to me. Reporting is due between January 1st and January 15th. We do have that short deadline only because we do have a deadline from the IRS. And so as you can see, I didn't have a whole lot of time to turn around and accumulate everyone. So that's why those deadlines are so important. Fiscal year-end financial package. You probably know our year-end is June 30th. And so around end of June, we're going to start sending out emails to you, letting you know what information is required. This just kind of lists some of the different things that you're going to be required to send us. There's a checklist included. There's you're required to put your budget on QuickBooks. Then there's some tax forms. Some bank statements. We're going to ask you to send the bank statements, your investment statements, credit card statements, anything of that nature that's going to support your balances that you have in QuickBooks. And then there's an audit checklist that you'll have to get your audit committee involved and they'll have to sign off on it. Some tips related to the financial package. I would suggest not waiting to the last minute. If they're due July 31st, which they are, then I wouldn't start on them July 30th because that's not going to give you enough time to get them together. As soon as your year end is done, or even before that, you can start pulling together your different statements and things that you know you're going to need to send to us. Go ahead and get those scanned and ready to go. I'm going to send you a secure link back in July that you can upload everything so you don't have to worry about security. The other thing you might do is talk to the prior treasurer. If they're still around or you have the opportunity to talk to them, get some input from them as to how things went last year, what were some things they learned from the process to make this smoother for you. Reconcile your bank accounts, your investment accounts, at least quarterly. Again, we recommend monthly, but quarterly at a minimum. Do all your activity in QuickBooks, and make sure that you are putting together reports and information that your board and your committees are looking for. If they have a certain reporting package they want to see, make sure that you've worked on getting that and know how to provide that information to them. And then last, we suggest you use checks and credit cards and not cash for any chapter and branch activities. Your fiscal year end budget is due by September 30th. Again, we need it entered into QuickBooks. And you're just going to review last year's activities, look at your strategic plan, look at new initiatives. What are things that you're going to discontinue that you've had in the past? What are you going to continue? Kind of think about what are the expected costs going to be this year. Maybe you're going to use a percentage increase, but just different things to look at to put together where you think you're going to end up for the next fiscal year. And then reminders of due dates we just talked about. 1099s are due by January 15th. Keep in mind that 1099s cover the prior calendar year. So that's going to be January 1 to 12/31, whereas your financial package is going to cover the fiscal year. And that's going to be July 1 to June 30th, and it's due by July 31. Your audit checklist is due by September 30th. And then your budget is due by September 30th. So you can see there's a little bit of a spread with due dates. So we give you a little extra time to get your audit checklist and your budget done. Tax ID numbers. APWA has one tax ID number, and that's 36-2202880. All of the chapters, all of the branches fall under the same tax ID number. There should be no chapter branch with a separate ID. If you go to the bank and they say, we need a separate ID, you have to say, no, we fall under the chapter, and we just need to put it in the name of APWA doing business as, and then you can put your chapter name behind it. We do have an assigned W-9 out on the Chapter Leader Resource tab under taxes, so that you have reference to that if you ever need to give it to someone. And then finally, some tidbits, things that might help you. Chapter treasurer is responsible for all the branches, as we talked about earlier. When you're recording your revenues and expenses in QuickBooks, be very cognizant that you're not using the miscellaneous income or miscellaneous expense category excessively. We ask that those accounts only have less than $2,500 in them. If you're not quite sure where to put something and everything seems to be ending up in miscellaneous, maybe reach out to me and I can help you identify which account would be a better fit. You never want to post transactions to a prior fiscal year that we've already closed out. So let's say in July you find a mistake and we'd already closed June 30th. You cannot go back and change those numbers once they've been reported to National. We've already given those numbers and included them in our 990 tax return. So if you ever find that situation, reach out to me. There's a way we can figure it out, and I'll help you with that. Only use the chart of accounts that National has set up. Don't try to add your own account numbers. Again, that's for consistency and summarizing everything for year-end purposes. So we need everyone to be using the same chart of accounts. And I mentioned earlier, it's important to get W-9s from all vendors. The only exception to that would be your student scholarship recipients. We don't have to report monies that we pay to them, so that's not important. But every other vendor, I would highly recommend, if you're making a payment, just go ahead and request that W-9. Stay current on your bank activity. We talked about that. Something through QuickBooks is if you, once you're set up in QuickBooks and we've connected your bank account to QuickBooks, it seems like it's great and it does everything for you, but you need to be really careful that you recognize that when the bank brings over those transactions, they're going to try and dump them all into a miscellaneous type line, and they're going to think they're all expenses. It's important that you go into that download from the bank and identify what is the appropriate code, and then also go ahead and put the vendor name in there. Who are we making that payment to? If you do that, it'll make it a lot easier when we go to do the 1099s at year end, because you can use your QuickBooks as a resource to summarize payments to different vendors, and you don't have to go through and pick and choose what you pay to that vendor. Another, excuse me, another area that seems to cause a lot of trouble is if you're transferring monies between bank accounts. Let's say you have a checking account and a savings account, and you do that within the bank. The bank that you took the money out of is going to think that was a payment, and it's going to try and record that as an expense and a payment. And that, as you know, that's not what that is. It's really, it was your money, you're just transferring it between accounts. So if you ever get a transfer and the bank is trying to record it as an expense, what I suggest is you just go in and delete that transaction from the bank and then just manually enter it as a transfer between accounts. And there's a real easy way of doing that in QuickBooks. Do not link your investment accounts to QuickBooks. I know that when we first started setting everyone up with their QuickBooks last year, some of the investment accounts got connected, and it just caused a lot of heartache, I think, on the back end, because there's so many transactions that for your investment account that there's so much activity coming through, and it really doesn't all need to be there. So I would highly recommend just disconnecting your investment account if it's set up to QuickBooks. Follow up on any outstanding checks. And as Mary mentioned earlier, we're going to be offering different QuickBook training sessions over the next few months. One of them that I know has been dear to everyone's heart is how to record investment transactions, because it's very important to make sure you're separating your realized and unrealized gains and losses. So I've got some training that I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks on that subject. So be on the lookout for that. And I don't know if we've got time for question and answers or if anything came up in the chat, but if you need to get in touch with me, I've got my phone number here listed, Mary's name and phone number, and then I mentioned Jordan, she's our accountant. She can help with your certificates of insurance and different things like that. So I guess that's it. Anybody have any quick questions or?
Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Mary, very much. I appreciate you guys taking the time today and running through that. Sorry, it seemed like it was probably a real quick dump on everybody today. You know, there's a lot to cover in 90 minutes. We were wanting to keep these short sessions for you, keep your attention going, but make sure that we give you all the nuts and bolts of what you need to be a successful chapter leader. We do have day 3 and day 4 next Tuesday and Thursday. Day 3 will be all about our education, and it will spotlight everything that the education team can do for you as chapter leaders and what you can do to help them. Day 4 will kind of be an advocacy, our meetings department, chapter websites, communication. It'll be a combination of a lot of everything else that will make your chapter successful as well. So look forward to day 4. But we want to take the time to say thank you for staying on. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. We really hope that you've enjoyed this first week of chapter leaders training in a virtual format, and we look forward to seeing you next week. If you've got questions or if you need anything from us, there'll be a couple staff members who stay afterwards. We're more than happy to entertain questions for the next 15, 20 minutes if you need us to. Thanks a lot and have a great rest of your day.